welcome Mignon Williams,
Thank
who
you so
is
much.
the tax expert for businesses, small
Yes.
businesses, entrepreneurs, LLCs. I met her a couple of years ago at a convention, and I was just blown away by her passion and her knowledge in the area of taxes. Thanks
Yes.
for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So how long have you been in business? That's what I wanted to get into. Because when you started your business, almost immediately you bumped into a big no.
Yeah, I did. So I actually started my business in 2017. You know how most people are. They start a business, they already have a W-2 job, so they're kind of not really motivated to do anything with it. So it kind of sat for a couple of years. And I've always been in the finance space. Started off with Bank of America as an intern years ago. I won't tell my age, but I've worked Bank of America, Capital One, American Express. At the time, I was working with what is now U.S. Bank, back then Bank of Tokyo. Great job, right? Great corporate banking job, making multiple six figures. And I got a knock on the door. I was, just typing away, responding to emails. And I got like, not a typical knock. It was like a bang on the door. And I'm like, who is this? And I'm like, that sounds like the police. So I opened the door, and it's the county sheriff.
Really?
Serving me papers saying that I had a tax lien from years that I had not even, in fact, it was when I was an intern, and I was a 1099 contractor, not knowing that I had to pay taxes on.
So these were personal taxes.
Yes, personal taxes.
That you never paid.
Right.
Because they weren't withdrawn
They were
automatically
not
from your check.
yes. So, I mean, unbeknownst to me, I'm just sitting thinking that, I'm filing my taxes regularly every year. I would normally get a refund because I was W-2. So, of course, the money gets taken out, and then whatever's left over, I just would get like a little bit of a refund. And this hit me just out of the blue. So I was like feverish in
They
learning.
came to your job?
No, I was working from home. No, working from home. That would be embarrassing.
Right. Traumatic.
No, working from home. And I just poured into tax law. First I called a tax attorney, several of them, interviewed them, actually put someone on retainer, had this person on retainer for at least 6 months, just flushing money away. Because he really wasn't doing much of anything. And I thought that, let me just do some research. Let me just go and research tax law. So I'm figuring out how to reduce my tax bill. And you know how the algorithm of the internet works. You're searching for things, and I happened to be on Instagram, and I ran across someone's account that was like, hey, start your own tax business. And I'm like, that would be a really interesting way to actually learn about taxes and then dig myself out of this hole that I had gotten into. So I partnered with this company. At the time, it was called Jumping Jack Tax, had great mentorship. We had this huge network of like 700, 800 different tax offices across the country. I very quickly became a leader in the space. I wanted to train, I wanted to develop, I wanted to teach people not only what I had learned in taxes, but how to like run and scale a business. I'm a marketing major, even though I've been in finance. So I really love the marketing and the advertising portion of getting your business out there. So I'm teaching these different tax offices like how to run and scale their business. And that's really how I got into this space. So I really was not motivated until I got that knock on the door.
Well, yeah, a lot of times a no can push us places we never thought we'd be. I had a tax experience that I write about in one of my books, and it motivates you to know everything you can to avoid ever experiencing that again.
Yes, and what was crazy was, as I was going through that year, it was 2019, and we had like this national training in Philadelphia. And I still had this like looming cloud of this tax burden on me. At that time, I had already started the tax resolution process with the IRS, so they were willing to negotiate. Luckily for me, 2019, I'll never forget, it was August, actually 5th. But I got a call from one of my bosses, and they were like, hey, you guys are great, we love what you're doing, but we're merging with another bank, which is now U.S. Bank, and your services will no longer be needed. And that was devastating because, like I said, I loved the job. It was amazing. I had an amazing boss. Like, out of all the times that I've worked in, corporate America, for the first time I had like a leader who I really admired. He cared about me. He cared about my growth. But, you know, sometimes you're just at the whim of someone's red pen or business decision.
So you didn't jump into entrepreneurship. You were pushed.
I was pushed, and I had to build wings on the way down. But that worked in my favor.
Right.
Because I had gone from, you know, a set salary, a very high salary, to basically California unemployment. And so to the IRS on paper, if you're making a certain amount of money, and then you have to go down a certain amount of money, you would qualify for IRS tax resolution or settlement of the debt for less than what's owed. So that actually worked in my favor.
From a tax perspective,
yes.
Yeah. But what was next?
To start a tax business right before an unknown pandemic. It actually worked out, though, because the way that the business was structured, it was structured to be online. So they didn't want anyone, you know, coming into a business or they wanted it to be 100% online. And we had no idea that, you know, COVID-19 was going to be a thing and we were all going to be on lockdown. So when people were used to walking into H&R Block or into or not TurboTax, but, you know, your mom and pop shops, they were forced to stay home. And here we are.
So it kind of leveled the playing field for your business.
In the background, we're already building a virtual tax business.
And you've got a marketing mind, so you've got experience in how to market your services.
Yeah.
And your focus was on individuals or businesses?
In the beginning, it was individuals, because the way that the business model worked, we would get paid when the customers would get a refund. So we would work with the refund customers, which was great in the beginning. But it became very transactional. They're not as loyal to you over the years. And so I really found my greatest value being proven to people who had like me. They had a tax, they had a bill and they were trying to reduce it, or they were trying to reduce the amount of money that they owed the IRS, and those people were high earners. So I started to shift my focus from refund clients to clients who were looking to reduce their tax bill.
What a marvelous example of a business that solves a problem. A lot of times people want businesses that they just like, but they've not really addressed what people need. People need help with taxes. It's so complicated that the tax code can't be understood by the average person.
And that's where I really come in and thrive, because I'm a self-proclaimed nerd. Okay, so I went to this school in Nashville, high school in Nashville, Hume-Fogg, which is like one of the top academic high schools in Nashville. So we love to call ourselves nerds. But I study everything. So when I was, you know, pouring through the tax code, trying to dig myself out of tax debt, I realized how much I really enjoyed the educational piece of it. And I come from a family of educators. My father worked at Tennessee State, Cheney, retired from Tuskegee. So I really pride myself on teaching people taxes. Like tax education, I feel like is what differentiates me from anybody else that just goes in and gets their taxes done.
Yeah, so my experience is that people either see taxes as just so complicated they try not to think about it. Or they see taxes as just a burden that they have to carry. How do you make knowing about taxes and winning at taxes exciting? How do you make it interesting?
It's that. I make it a game. I make it I'm a competitive person. And people may not think of cheerleaders and dancers as athletes, but I did cheer. I cheered for the NFL, for the Atlanta Falcons. And I grew up around athletes. And so for me, like everything was like a game, like everything was like a competition. So I figured like, okay, if my opposition is the IRS, how can I beat them?
I see.
Like, how can I win at this? Because like, I just can't take it laying down that I owe you 20 grand I can't take that. What can I do to use the rules that you set out for me? These are your rules. How can I use your rules to beat you at your own game? And so when I put it that way to people, they're like, okay, especially business owners, man, when I teach them the rules of the game, they're like, oh, this is actually fun. So you mean I can take the car that I bought this year, the Escalade that cost me 100 grand, And now that the tax rule has changed where I can write off the entire amount.
Year one.
I could do that. And I'm like, absolutely. It's in the playbook.
Okay, folks, now you've heard it for the first time in your life. This is the first time you've ever heard that dealing with taxes can be fun.
Yes, I'm telling you.
And competing with the IRS, you can win. So, Mignon, this is quite interesting because there are two categories of people that are really blowing up in terms of entrepreneurship. Number one, it's black women. More businesses are being formed by black women than any other category.
This is true.
And the second is student athletes because of NIL and profit sharing, and now the rules have changed and athletes can be paid. You seem to be specializing in both categories.
Yes.
And a lot of your clients are athletes.
They are.
And you are a strategic resource for the National Playmakers Academy. Talk about your work with athletes.
Yeah. So at that time, the playing field was changing. At the time, it was called NIL. Now it's called revenue share for anyone who's on a roster and can tap into what the roster has for that athlete at the time that he comes in, and this depends on his position on the team. So a lot of these guys, before it became a big deal, when they were getting money, they were getting hit, just like myself, with a tax bill. In fact, there's this podcast that CJ Stroud is on, and he's like, yeah, man, I was in the NIL space, and I was making all this money, and I was giving money away to my mom and my brother, and years later go by, and I get hit with the big tax bill, and no one told me that I had to save for taxes. And that was an opportunity for me to come in and take what I already know and take a very young demographic and teach them, because we didn't learn about taxes in high school or in middle school. Like we learned to go and work for 30, 40 years for a company and get the taxes taken out, and but no one groomed us on how to, one, understand the tax code, two, how to become entrepreneurs. These guys are they're entrepreneurs without even knowing it yet.
So what do you do to help them?
So one, it is a requirement to work with me that you have to have already established, or we will set one up for you, an LLC.
And what is an LLC?
It's just a limited liability company. It basically takes the liability of whatever tax burden or anything in your business, takes it off of you. But basically, you are a walking, talking business.
Right.
Yeah. We make sure that they brand themselves as a business, even though you're an athlete and you're an individual. You kind of Jekyll and Hyde now.
Yeah. And as a consequence, you're able to deduct some of your normal living and operating expenses as business expenses, which reduces your taxes.
Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of these guys that are playing travel ball, they're playing 7-on-7. They are paying for their hotel rooms, their flights, their food. If their parents are paying for their very specific diet because they can't just eat anything, it's a tax deduction.
Right.
And I teach them how to do that.
Great. So what are the key decisions young people need to make, old people need to make? What are the key considerations we need to make as taxpayers? We're going to pay taxes, but what are the key things that you teach people as relates to managing their taxes and minimizing their taxes?
Honestly, you really have to, you have to really operate in a Jekyll and Hyde mentality.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Jekyll meaning like one, you're an individual, and then Hyde, you are the business.
Right.
And you cannot commingle the two. So as far as like my business and my personal expenses, I have personal cards and I have business cards.
Credit cards.
Yes, credit or debit.
Right.
Really for business credit cards.
Right.
Because I want to, I like the
points. Right.
I like flying for free.
Right.
And then, of course, you keep the money in the cash in the bank, and then you pay it off at the end of the month.
So you have two separate credit card, debit cards, two separate bank accounts.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And I have taught myself to not commingle. Like literally, if I'm going, like today, I'm flying back to Nashville. Whatever I pay for food-wise is going on my business card. And then when I get back to Nashville and I take myself to Chick-fil-A, it's going to go on my personal card. So you literally have to train your brain to think, one, as an individual, and then two, as a business. And I teach my athletes, and it's hard sometimes because they want to DoorDash and
it's very hard. I've worked with entertainers, mostly in gospel, but some secular, and it's very hard. It was hard to discipline myself.
Yeah.
And it's hard to discipline people until they get in trouble. Now, once people get in trouble, you have their attention.
Life is always our greatest teacher, but yeah.
How do you convince people that they need you before they get in trouble?
I usually just use like life examples from people who are like themselves. I always bring up the C.J. Stroud example, and it's something that's gone viral, so I know that they've seen it. I use myself as an example. Like I said, life is your greatest teacher. And people do business with people that they trust. And if you can trust that I have gone through this situation, and I always say, do as I say, not as I have done.
Right.
Because that was a situation that spooked me so much that I would never want anyone to go through that. And I remember I was getting ready to get into this. I was in Philly at this convention teaching other tax professionals, and I was kind of just walking the streets by myself, and I told myself, I said, God, if you get me out of this tax situation, I will take what I have learned and I will teach as many people, and I will try to reach as many people to teach them about the tax code, to get them to really understand and embrace their own tax situation. Just allow me to be a living, breathing example. And I've never forgot, I think it was like the IRS finally settled with me like March 2021. Out of that like $25,000 tax bill, I think I settled for like $3,000. But by that time, I had already reached so many people. I had already taught over 1,000 tax professionals how to run their tax business and how to continue to help and serve their clients. So my mission, it was never fulfilled. I'm always going to be on this mission. But I said, God, if you just use me as an example, I promise I will bring it back to your kingdom. So like, when I tell that story, people are like, okay, this is someone who has not only been through the trenches, she's had, hundreds of doors slammed in her face and been told no so many times, but she took that and made it a triumphant story. I got to work with her.
That is wonderful. Yeah. Why do so many professional athletes end up bankrupt after they retire?
I would just go on record and say they got MC Hammer syndrome. I'm telling you, like
MC Hammer syndrome.
They try to save everybody. You can't save everybody. You can't throw money out to mom and dad and this new girlfriend you have, and you're spending money at the Amiri store. Like, no, we have to have some discipline. And there are legal loopholes to still pay those people on payroll to reduce that. But it takes the right person, myself, and other tax professionals, other tax experts and strategists to implement that. But I see it all the time. Venmos, Cash App, Zelle. And I'm like, you can't write that off, right?
Right. So what is the number one lesson you want people, small business people, athletes, entertainers, what is the number one lesson you want them to learn from an IRS perspective? What is it about us and the IRS that you want us to know?
We have to plan before April 15th. You cannot tax plan backwards. And a lot of
April 15th comes every year.
Yes, it comes every year. But the thing is, if you have a strategy between January 1st and December 31st, and you work with someone like myself and other tax planners, there are ways to diversify those funds. There are investment accounts. You can set up a SEP IRA, max that out. That's tax deductible. A regular IRA, max that out. That's also tax deductible. Obviously, payroll. There are different little buckets you can, and it's your money. It's not like you're losing the money. You're just putting it in an account that is tax deferred or tax deductible.
Right.
But you have to work. You don't know these things. You have to work with someone who was on your side, who was your biggest literally, I'm your biggest cheerleader to make sure that you are doing things correctly from January 1st to December 31st. Because once January 1st of the tax year hits, Cinderella baby, it's too late. Like, your horse and carriage got turned back into a pumpkin.
Yeah, and God forbid it's April 16th.
Right.
Because now you're paying late fees
Exactly.
and interest and all of that.
So we have to implement the strategies in the tax year and not before they're due.
Right.
So,
folks, you've been listening to Mignon Williams, a dynamic, articulate, thoughtful entrepreneur who's helping other entrepreneurs like me and others reduce their tax liability. But it's not just about reducing taxes. It's really about having a plan for your money and maximizing what your money can mean for you. I want you to reach out to her if you're a business. If you're not a business and should be a business, you should reach out to her because she can give you advice and she can also support your operations in ways that will save you money, even though she will cost you money. Thank you for watching this episode of the DFREE Wealth Lab. If you need financial help, go to our website, dfree.com/gethelp, and join the DFREE community, where we hold each other accountable towards reaching our financial goals.